Hello there, James Copper, Youth Voice and Creative Engagement Officer for North Yorkshire County Council. I wanted to make a video that was appropriate for children, young people and people who are SEND to break some of the myths and explain about the coronavirus and viruses in general. There's a lot of false information out there and a lot of people are very anxious at the moment. They're being told kind of what they have to do, but no one's actually explaining why. So I wanted to make this video as been asked by a couple of people to explain things to them. So instead of doing it individually, I thought I'd make this and kind of get it out there to the wider world to be shared and just to inform. So what exactly is a virus? A scientist will tell you that a virus is a parasitic single-cell organism which infects a host in order to reproduce and continue its survival. But what does all that mean? So if you think of computers who use a lot of the same kind of words, they talk about a virus as something that comes in and alters the program of a computer. So all computer games or Microsoft Word, any of those things all run on what's called programming, which are the information that tells that game or that program how to run, how to work. And it's exactly the same with a human that's infected by a virus. So what that virus does on a computer is it goes and affects the information on how it runs and puts its own information in place of it. So instead of, say, running Microsoft Word, a virus will do something else to your computer. And it'll behave how the virus wants it to do. So it alters the information that's already there and changes it to benefit itself. So that's exactly the same as what it does to a person or whatever living being that the virus has gone into. So let's kind of explain that. So first of all, we're talking about the biological viruses now that affect me or a cat or anything like that. They are single-celled organisms. They're smaller even than bacteria. So to see a human cell, so the parts that every living thing are made up of, whether it's a plant or a creature, whether it's an ant, an amoeba, an elephant, a blue whale, a human being, a dog, they're all made up of cells. And cells are the tiny little building blocks that we're all kind of made up of. They're so small that if you even took a tiny piece of skin and looked at it under a microscope, you would see thousands of cells that make up that tiny piece of skin. So we're all made up of cells, every single one of us. And within a cell is a nucleus, which is just a little kind of ball in the middle, and that contains either DNA, if it's a living creature, or RNA, if it's a plant. And those are basically a little bit like the computer program. That's the information on how that cell works and runs. So very much like the programming on a computer, our DNA and RNA just sits within our cells and tells that cell on what it needs to do and how to kind of operate, how to work. What scientists are still debating actually, whether a virus is chemical or if it's biological. Because although they contain either DNA and RNA themselves, they don't kind of think or react to stimulus or anything in their environment. They simply carry out one function like a chemical may do. So once it reaches the host cell, which we're going to talk about, it kind of reproduces then and only then. So without overcomplicating things, what is a virus and how it works? So like I said, it's a single cell organism. I also use the word parasite. So a parasite is something that can only live on another living creature. For example, a flea is a parasite because it can only live by sucking the blood out of your cat or dog, for example. There's also bacteria parasites which live on everyone's skin. Everyone's got them. Some of them do really good things by cleaning your body. And some live in your guts. You know, those yogurt drinks that you drink that contain living bacteria that's good for your body. They help you digest food. So not all things that are parasitic are negative. Some of it's really useful for the body. But things like viruses tend to cause us harm. Now, it doesn't mean the virus is evil or nasty or that's what it wants to do. A virus doesn't think. A virus's job is simply to reproduce and continue its existence. Now, this is the same for any living thing whatsoever, whether it's a tree who grows fruits for a bird to eat, which then spreads its seed so that another tree grows and it reproduces, to humans or cats or donkeys who all want to have babies so that their species carry on. Because if we didn't have children and reproduce ourselves, then humans just wouldn't exist anymore. We'd all kind of grow old and die, and that'd be the end of humans. A virus is exactly the same. A virus simply wants to create more viruses to carry on forever. So how does a virus work? So viruses are often around us in the air, and most of the time the body deals with it quite well. So our body's equipped to do things to get rid of a virus. So a virus might go in your nose, for example. Within your nose there's mucus or snot, and the virus will get stuck there, and then we have cells called antibodies which go and kill that virus. Sometimes the virus is stronger or we're weaker, and it will infect us. So what does that mean, an infection? So an infection is where a virus has managed to take over your body in some way. So what happens is the virus goes into your body. How does it do that? Now, it could be you've got a cut on your body and it goes in through your cut. Some viruses you might breathe in through the air. So someone else that's infected with the virus might sneeze. You breathe in that air. The virus is within that air. It goes into you and you breathe that in. It could be on food or anywhere. So if I touch a doorknob and it's got a virus on, I then lick my fingers or eat something with my hand, that virus then enters my body. This is happening all the time, and it's nothing to be scared of, because most of the time we can get rid of viruses. But sometimes, if it's the flu or the current virus, it's a little bit stronger and it's harder to get rid of. Still, most people manage okay to beat it with the way that the bodies are equipped to do that, which is really complicated, but also really amazing, because we are really special and we can get rid of things quite easily. But what they do is, so say for example, the coronavirus goes into your lungs. It then attaches to cells within the lung, and it goes into a bit like the computer, and it's rechanging the programming. A virus will attach itself to the wall of a cell, and it will put its own DNA within that cell and tell that cell to reproduce. So what's basically happening is it's infecting your cells and making your cells their own, and the virus then tells that cell to reproduce and keep making copies of itself. So once it's infected you, it's just reproducing itself continuously in order to create its own, basically babies, but it's not a baby, it's an exact copy of itself. And then when it's reproduced, its job's then to try and get you as a person to spread that to other people. So that's how a virus kind of, what it is and how it exists and what its purpose is. It doesn't mean it's nasty, it doesn't want to hurt you, it just doesn't care, it doesn't think at all. Its only reason to exist is to continue existing. So it just wants to make copies of itself so that that virus survives. So what exactly is coronavirus? Now, just like there's different types of birds, different types of germs, different types of trees, there's different types of viruses. So you've heard of influenza, that's the virus that causes flu. Coronavirus is just another different type of virus. You may have had it before, so it's been around for a long time. People have been infected by it quite a lot, and most of the time it just gives you a cough or a cold, and you learn how to beat it, and then you're kind of immune to that strain of the virus. Now, it's called coronavirus. Now, corona is the Spanish word for crown. If you looked at the virus underneath the microscope, it got called coronavirus because it's kind of a little ball, and then it's got points on top of it with little blobs at the top, so it looks a little bit like the bits coming off a crown, which is how it got its name. So it's basically the crown virus. Now, the reason why it suddenly spread and appeared is because things mutate. So when cells reproduce themselves, they often kind of mutate and become slightly different. If you think of this mole here on my head, where is it? There it is. So my skin cells are reproducing all the time. Everyone's do. Now sometimes the DNA, like we said before, that's like the program which tells that cell what it is and how to perform, it sometimes changes, it mutates. That's what mutation means. So the skin cells there mutated, and instead of forming my normal skin, it formed a mole. Now, sometimes what happens is the virus mutates, it changes, and then it becomes a slightly different virus to what it was before. So if you think every single year, when we have the flu jab, you might have had it at school, or you might know adults that have had it at the doctors. Each year the flu virus changes slightly because the whole job is to reproduce themselves, and they reproduce quite quickly. It's quite easy for information to change slightly. Now, if that's successful, so if that mutation, that change of information then helps that virus to infect people even better, then that virus will continue to exist and continue to mutate, because it's survival of the fittest. For example, giraffes mutated to have a slightly longer neck. So those with slightly longer necks carried on surviving because they could reach for the trees better than their other ones. So that mutation survived. So it's the same with the virus. So if a virus is particularly good at infecting people, it will continue to survive and reproduce. So this is a new form of coronavirus, which is called COVID-19, because there's lots and lots of different types. And unfortunately, this type of virus infects people very quickly. So it's very good at reproducing, and it's very good at spreading. And it started in a place called Wuhan in China, which is a city on the river. And we don't know exactly why, and scientists are still trying to find out, because if we try and find out, it's not to blame anyone. Blaming anyone's pointless, because no one asked to be poorly. But we found out how it started and why it started. It means we can stop something like this happening in the future. So scientists are trying to work that out now. But what happens is, it spreads, and if it spreads extremely well, we are under what's called a pandemic, which I'll explain what a pandemic is. So what is a pandemic? So the different stages of people infected by viruses. So it starts off with an epidemic. Now, epi means many, and demi means people, so many people, to a pandemic. So pan is all people. So basically, it starts off with a epidemic, which is a lot of people saying one country have got it, and once it's spread across different countries and continents, you have a pandemic. So pandemic just basically means that the virus has affected a lot of different people across different parts of the world and different continents. So, for example, the coronavirus now is in Asia, it's in Europe, Africa, America, South America, Oceania, all the different continents now have it. So it's definitely a pandemic. So we know we've been told by the government that we have to self-isolate. But what a lot of people have asked me is, why do we have to self-isolate? So we know we have to self-isolate, but it's not really being explained, other than saying also we don't get the virus or don't spread the virus. But what does all that actually mean? So let's look at how a virus spreads. So we have looked at what a virus, how it infects a person. But by infecting one person, if that person then got hit by a bus tomorrow, that virus would die. So it's really important for a virus, for its own survival, is they want to infect as many people as possible. So how do they do this? So again, mutation and evolution. So we spoke about a giraffe. A giraffe with longer necks can reach up in the trees and get more food. So that giraffe with the longer neck is more likely to survive. It will have babies which will have longer necks, and it will keep continuing that mutation on and on and on, because it has benefits. So it's the same with the virus. So the virus that has mutated to work with the body's response to the virus, so how the body reacts to being infected, will then continue to pass that on to when it reproduces itself. So, for example, some of the things that they do is actually really effective, because it uses the way that our bodies try and get rid of the virus in order to spread itself. A perfect example of that, it's not just how their body responds, but it's sometimes even how you think. So there's a virus called rabies. Now, a dog that has rabies, which we don't have in the UK anymore, but a dog that has rabies, it's actually made to be more aggressive because the virus lives in the saliva of the animal. So that dog will try and bite more people, because the more people or other animals it bites, then the virus will be passed on. through its teeth into the flesh of another being. Now, it's a little bit the same with the virus in two ways. So you will start coughing all the time because the brain's been altered to tell you to cough. So part of that is the virus telling the brain to cough, because by coughing you are spreading the virus out. But also the body will respond to being infected by coughing anyway, because our lungs are being filled with mucus and the viral cells. And so the body wants to get rid of that. So the body gets rid of that by coughing, by bringing it up and bringing it out. Now, the problem with that is it also has the viral cells in it, which then go into the air. The coronavirus, we know, is quite good at living outside the body. No virus can live outside the body permanently. It does need to infect another person, another host. The host is the person that's infected in scientific terms. So what the virus does, it goes out of the body. If I cough now in my house and someone else then breathes in one of the cells in the air from my cough, then they'll be infected. But I could also cough, for example, on my worktop. And if I don't clean that worktop, and then someone else makes some food on that worktop, and then they put that in their mouth, those viral cells will then go into their body and infect them as well. And so the virus continues to spread. So by using the body's mechanism to actually try and get rid of the virus by coughing, to clear our lungs, the virus very cleverly uses it against us to infect more people. So the reason we're staying in theory of the government, is that if we stay in and we are infected, then we're not going to infect other people. And if we're outside and someone else is infected, by being outside less, then we're less likely to catch the virus off someone else. So by lessening the amount of people that are outside and staying in, then less of us being infected, and less of us are going to be in danger of having the virus. And that's the theory anyway. That's the reason why we have to stay in. So thank you very much for listening. One last thing that I wanted to answer is, how scared should we be? We should be scared enough to make sure that we are looking after ourselves. So in preventing being sick anyway, so things like washing our hands, especially after going to the toilet, not touching our faces, making sure that we're looking after our bodies by doing exercise, and also eating healthy foods and drinking healthy drinks. So lots of fruit, vegetables and a balanced diet, cutting out junk food and things like that is going to make our body at any time of our lives easier to kill any viruses. One of the things, there's a great video on the internet, and it basically says, can you change it? If not, why worry? So if you can't change the virus, you can't do anything about it, so it's pointless worrying about it. Worrying about it is an inspiration to change. If you're worried, you might change something, but you can't change this virus. So all you have to do is try and be careful. Now, although it is infecting a lot of people, most people do survive. Sadly, it is killing people that are already very poorly, most of the time, who will often have what they're calling underlying health issues. So someone with cancer who's fighting cancer, for example, if they got poorly, they're more likely to die than someone that's fit and healthy. So on the whole, most people don't have to worry. That doesn't mean that we need to not care at all, because just because you're fit and healthy and may not need to worry, that doesn't mean that you might carry the virus and then pass it on to someone that isn't. Like the elderly find it harder to beat viruses. So someone that gets the flu really bad as well can be quite fatal. So in the same way that the flu might kill someone, the coronavirus could also do the same. But the difference is this coronavirus in particular seems to be very good at spreading, which is why we need to be careful. So there's no point sitting in your house worrying. We need to get on with life, because worrying doesn't really help. It also actually affects your immune system, so that if you worry a lot and you're not sleeping very well, then you're more likely to become poorly. So find ways to help you relax, whether that's ringing your friends up, chatting on the phone, playing video games. Meditation is a really great way. There's loads of apps online that you can, YouTube videos to learn how to meditate, listening to music, dancing. I enjoy, my way of chilling out when I'm stressed is I get in a really hot bath and I have a really good book and I lie in there and I read and I escape in that book. So there's lots of different ways. You find your way of chilling out and not being worried. Thank you so much for watching this video. I do hope it helps. The whole purpose is to kind of explain things in ways that everyone can understand. I hope I've done that. If I haven't, please comment and let me know. If you have any more questions, just please, again, leave me a comment or my emails below, and I'll try and answer those. If you have any other questions that you want to know, as I said, I'm not a scientist, I am not a doctor, all I am is a youth worker, and my job is to try and educate other people and through youth work. And as I can't do that in groups or youth clubs and the ways I normally work, I thought I'd make these videos to kind of explain some of the questions that some of my young people that have been asking me. And if my young people are asking me, then that means other young people are kind of thinking the same thing. So thank you ever so much for watching. If you have any more questions, or you have any ideas of any other videos I should make in this period, because I'm working from home, then please do let me know. Drop us an email, leave a comment, and if you think it's useful, then just share it with as many people as you can. The whole idea is to explain things and get rid of some of that fear that some of the young people are feeling at the moment, and especially young people with additional needs, that they're not being explained things. The news kind of tells you things in ways that you should already know all the information, and they're just reporting the updates, when actually some people need to know from the very beginning. So that was the whole aim of this video, so I hope it's achieved its purpose. Everyone, please stay safe, look after yourself, look after everyone else, and just try and not to worry. Worrying's not going to help you. Smile every day. Do things you're enjoying while you're stuck in at home. Rekindle those relationships and just take care of one another. And I hope to see you all on the other side. Stay safe. Much love. Bye bye.